We are back in Middle-earth and we're finally getting our hands on the Hobbit in Magic the Gathering. But with a new set, that means tons of potential cards that you could add to your Commander decks, and that can be overwhelming. So in this video, I'm going to give you what I think are the best cards for the 99 from the Hobbit. From the biggest hits to the most playable, and where and how you'll want to play them so that you know what to look out for when you start cracking your packs. Now, I'm going to get the big money cards out of the way first, because other than knowing you've likely pulled something of value, I don't really want to focus on them. This is partially because I care far more about playing with the cards than opening them as investments, but also because you'll probably know them when you see them. They will either be a very blinged out looking golden Smaug, in which case definitely put a sleeve on that one if you get it, or they'll be in Dwarven runes, and definitely sleeve that one too. They could also have this cool dragon frame treatment, in which case look out for ones that are Surge for, as some of them might be worth a pretty penny, again especially if they're a Smaug. The last one that most of you want to look out for is ones that look like an old book cover. If you buy whole boxes, there'll also be box toppers, which will contain reprints of the previous Middle-earth set. These reprints are of mostly good and expensive cards, and you'll probably recognize them. They're full arts of cards that you know, like Orcish Bowmasters, the Lighted Halfling, Last March of the Ents, or of course the controversial One Ring. Okay, reprints and big hits aside, let's look at the cards you're actually going to put in your decks though. We'll start with something humble and not particularly flashy. I love removal spells that hit something from each opponent, and Celebrate the Mountain King is a 4-mana enchantment that does just that. It also, however, has Recruit, a new ability that allows us to draw a card and discard a card, and if we discard a non-land card, we create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. By no means a game-breaking card, but a very solid mid-game play in almost any bracket 2 or 3 deck that has white in it. Long Lost Lancers is a really straightforward equipment, with a mana cost and equip cost of 2 generic mana. It also gives the equipped creature +2/+0, and during our turn, creatures who are equipped have First Strike and Vigilance. Many equipment heavy or Voltron decks really want Vigilance pretty badly, because that way we can have our big offensive threat without just getting player removed on the clapback because we have no blockers, which often we don't. I think it'll be a great addition in most equipment or Voltron based decks. One of my favorite things in Magic is spells that do multiple things, and Stone by Sunlight is a great example. It can either destroy a big powerful creature, or it can give one of our creatures indestructible for 2 mana. It's just a really solid addition to most decks, and we all need more interaction. Next up is a great flavorful draw spell in blue in Riddles in the Dark. It costs 3 mana, is at instant speed, and you look at the top 4 cards of your library and separate them into a face-up pile and a face-down pile. An opponent then chooses one of those piles and you put it into your hand and the other into your graveyard. This is going to go very nicely in any decks that want to fill their graveyard, and even more so because it creates a fun minigame where you try to outsmart your opponent with what you reveal and what you don't. On theme, this is going directly into my Sauron Spellslinger deck. Let's imagine you've just cast Riddles in the Dark and put some cards in your graveyard. What better way to make use of it than with Bilbo Thief in the Night? This blue 2-mana Bilbo reduces the cost of spells that we cast from anywhere other than our hand by 1 mana. And when Bilbo attacks, we may cast an artifact, instant, or sorcery card from our graveyard. Now, whilst you could put Bilbo in the command zone, I think that deck will be really fun, but it'll probably struggle to close out the game unless it relies heavily on combo win conditions. I would much rather play him as a card in the 99 in a different deck that's all about abusing the graveyard. Either way, he's a great card. Next up, I think this is a much better constructed card than a commander card, but the most decrepit old bird also works pretty well with Bilbo. The adventure side is the important bit, and it costs 2 mana and says mill 4 cards, and then put an instant or sorcery card from among them into your hand. It's then also likely going to be a 1 mana 2/2 flyer, but that's a lot less impactful in a format like Commander. Uncover the Moon Letters is one of those cards that can be incredibly powerful if not removed. Now, it is a little bit slow as an enchantment for 4 mana, but it says whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we may draw X cards, where X is the amount of mana to cast that spell, and if you do, you discard 2 cards. If you're in a Spellslinger deck, like my Galazeth Prismari deck, then this can dig really deep into our deck and can generate a lot of card advantage. With that said, let's move from blue to black with Along the Crooked Way. It's a pretty simple card, but I think it's a great fit in decks that have many creatures leave their graveyard, like a Merrin or Sir Conrad deck. It's a 3-mana enchantment that returns target creature card from your graveyard to your hand when it enters. And whenever a creature card leaves our graveyard, we amass Goblins 1. This second ability can be very powerful, especially when paired with cards like a Phyrexian Altar or a Skull Clamp. Another great black card is Inside Information, and this card is going to cause some hijinks. It's a 2 black and X sorcery that says that we exile the top X cards of target opponent's library, and we may play those cards this turn. but rather than spend mana to cast those cards, we get to pay life instead. This is one of those high risk, high reward cards that can see you doing some absolutely filthy things far ahead of when they should be happening in a game of Commander. But sometimes you're going to hit 5 lands and it's just going to suck. But hey, it'll be a lot of fun. Another great black card is the Master of Lake Town, which is a prime card for any Mothman Commander deck, or really any deck that includes black that wants self-mill. He's basically Mind Crank strapped to a creature, which if you don't know the card means that whenever a player loses life, they mill that many cards. He also has Death Touch, which means no one's going to want to attack into him. And whenever he dies, we draw a card for each graveyard with 7 or more cards in it, which will probably be 4 graveyards and 4 cards. And that is not bad for a 3 mana investment. From one character in The Hobbit with questionable morals to another in the Sackville Bagginses. I think this card has a pretty narrow function where it's good, and that's in decks that are trying to create infinite loops using tokens, because this can act as an outlet to ping everyone for damage. It's black, costs 2 mana, and when it enters we can sacrifice another creature or artifact, and if we do, we draw a card and make a treasure token. This ability certainly isn't bad, but I feel like it's better for Constructed than Commander. In Commander, however, the ping effect for whenever we sacrifice a token is what really stands out. Now, flying in Commander is absolutely broken, because your opponents almost never have flying blockers. So if you're running a flying creature deck, then the Lord of the Eagles is going to be absolutely perfect in it. It's a very straightforward creature, but you'll likely end up paying 2 mana for this 8/8 blue flyer, and it has flash. This is definitely not going to win the game by itself, but it is incredible value, and the flash gives it some nice versatility. From birds to dwarves, there's Fili and Kili Joyous. 3-cost mana rocks really suck, but a 3/3 for 3 mana that also adds 2 mana that you can spend on dwarves, equipment, and sagas is not a bad deal. That may just be good enough to break the 3-cost rock curse. Outside of dwarf typal decks, I think the best place for this is probably lower powered equipment focused lists, with a caveat that this mana can't really be used to equip, it can only be used to play the equipment in the first place. Now, dwarves love treasure, so let's talk about Dragon's Desire. It's a red, 4 mana, more fair version of something like Dockside Extortionist. When we play it, we add 1 red mana for each artifact our opponents control. Now, I think this card will be highly situational. Sometimes it'll feel like the most broken card in your deck, and sometimes it's going to feel pretty bad. I think though, given the prevalence of how many artifacts there are in play in most games of Commander, and how many people abuse things like treasure tokens, this card will be pretty good in most decks that want ramp. I think it'll perform best at lower powers, like in bracket 2, where your deck can deal with the high variance of a card like this, or just slam it into your Kibo deck and profit. Or use Dragon's Desire against someone that is abusing Fateful Discovery. This is a 5 mana blue enchantment that says, whenever an artifact you control enters, you draw a card. Now 5 mana is a lot, but this is an incredibly powerful engine and potentially combo enabler. What stands out to me is that it's not limited to non-token artifacts, which means that if we play things like treasures, we draw a card. In a deck like my Galazeth Prismari Spellslinger deck, where I make tons of artifact tokens, this card is going to go incredibly hard. Now, if you are a wizard enjoyer, pay attention to wizard stuff. It's a blue 2 mana equipment that gives the equipped creature prowess, but much more importantly, if an ability of the equipped creature triggers, that ability triggers an additional time, and it costs 1 to equip a wizard. I'm sure there's many great ways to use this card, but my mind first goes to Vivi, which when paired with this, is going to be pretty busted if it wasn't busted already. Next up is Bilbo's Gambit, an incredible new flavorful and powerful 2 mana counterspell in a color that really gets them. Functionally, it's great at delaying someone from casting a big powerful spell or stopping interaction by returning their spell to their hand. It's the latter bit of the card though that I think will make the spell so powerful, because if it resolves and you've gifted a treasure, players can't cast spells this turn. The big catch here though, and I think that many overlook, is that no one can cast spells this turn, and that includes you. So the spell is great if you're, say, stopping a board wipe on an opponent's turn, but it's much more fickle on your turn. This card definitely has its uses, but just be aware that it'll require some setup if you plan to use it defensively on your own turn, because you're going to have played everything that you need to play to win the game before casting this spell. If you like token decks, then Belladonna Took is a great card for you. This white 2 mana creature says that the first, second, or third instances of a token entering under our control each turn gives us 1 life, or we draw a card, or we put a 1/1 counter on each creature we control. This is pretty powerful stuff, but the catch here is that obviously these are separate instances. We can't just make 3 tokens with a single spell and get all 3 effects. That said, in the right deck, with the right token production, this is going to be a fantastic card. Speaking of tokens, you've almost certainly heard of Gleaming Splendor. This 2-mana enchantment will almost certainly be a staple, especially in bracket 3 and above in any white decks. It says that whenever an opponent draws their second card each turn, we get to create a treasure token, and we can pay 3 mana to make 2 target players each draw a card. The static part of this card is obviously the stronger part of it, but if we want to activate it, we should have a lot of mana because of the treasure tokens. Now, despite the fact that I'm saying you may want to include this card in your decks, I think right now this card is a little bit overrated. When we compare it to the raw power of the problematic and explosive Smothering Tithe, it pales in comparison. But for a 2-drop, it's certainly not bad. So I heard you like tokens, so I got you more cards that make you tokens. Bothersome Noisemaker is a 2-mana goblin that amasses Goblins 1 whenever you cast a non-creature spell. I think the Noisemaker could fit into many decks, but I think its best place is in some kind of goblin-related combo deck. Cards like the Great Goblin and Skirk Prospector enable play patterns and loops that could do a whole lot if you chain a bunch of non-creature spells together. And similar to earlier, that's before we even include cards like Phyrexian Altar or Skullclamp into the equation. It also fits very nicely into my Sauron Spellslinger deck. Let's keep this token train running with Bilbo Fellow Conspirator. He is a pretty broken engine and combo enabler, and will likely feature in decks similar to how Peregrine Took does. He's green and costs 3 mana, and whenever we create a food token, we also get a treasure token as well. There's probably a commander deck that could be built around Bilbo as mono green, but I think he is far better in the 99 and will fit into any existing food-based strategies and combo decks very well. Now, if you're looking for cards that could fit into a food deck, Bag End Banquet is going to be an amazing addition. It's an artifact, and when it enters, we create 3 food tokens, and then we can then tap it to add a colorless mana for each food that we control. At 6 mana, it's pretty pricey, but given it immediately taps for 3 colorless mana, it's not too bad. The floor is reasonably low, but the ceiling is very high, especially in a deck that makes many foods, perhaps like a Rocco deck. You probably want to play this in bracket 2 and maybe bracket 3 decks because of its hefty mana cost and required setup, but if it comes online, it could allow you to completely take over the game. Now, I imagine there's a fairly good chance the kind of deck you want to play Bag End Banquet in is going to be a Hobbit deck, and if that's the case, you might want to consider the Notary Hobbits. Now, the Notaries are a measly 1/1 for 5 mana, but when they enter, if they're not a token, you create 2 tokens that are copies of them, except the tokens aren't legendary. And more importantly, they also have the ability that they can be tapped to add 1 colorless mana for each halfling you control. If you have the Notaries and literally only 2 other Hobbits in play, that's going to equate to 15 colorless mana, which is an incredibly big burst in power. Honestly, I think it's kind of broken, but only in a halfling or perhaps in a changeling deck. From Hobbits and food to 1/1 counters, and I think that the Necklace of Girion is going to be an auto-include for any deck that wants to abuse 1/1 counters. It's a 3 mana green artifact and says that whenever we cast the green spell or whenever a forest we control enters, we put a 1/1 counter on target creature we control. Any counter-heavy strategy, like a Tidus deck, will want this, but I also think it's going to go really great in my Skullbriar deck because of how well this works with cards like Hardened Scales or similar effects. As if I needed more ways to make Skullbriar a massive Voltron threat. Speaking of Voltron, Kili the Resourceful may be one of the most broken equipment-focused cards I think I've ever seen. He's a white 2-drop, and he has Storied, which as a reminder means that we need to have 3 or more artifacts, legendaries, or sagas to unlock this effect, which will be very easy to do in an equipment deck. As long as we have an enduring story, we may pay 0 rather than pay the equip cost of the first equip ability that we activate each turn. But wait, there is more. Whenever another dwarf or an equipment we control enters, we get to draw a card, and this ability triggers only once each turn. As a supporting card in an equipment-heavy Voltron deck, Kili will allow us to save a lot of mana because some of the best equipment has hefty equip costs, and he will draw us a card almost every turn. That is pretty broken for 2 mana. While we're talking about 2 mana dwarves that are absolutely broken in equipment decks, you might want to consider Dwalin Weapon Master for your Boros equipment heavy decks. Dwalin is a 2/1 for 2 mana with first strike, but that's not really what matters. Whenever he enters or attacks, you put a hone counter on each equipment you control, and a hone counter gives an equipment +1 power per hone counter. So if you have 3 pieces of equipment in play, you play Dwalin and you attack with him on the following turn, the creature equipped with those pieces of equipment get an extra 6 power, and that's pretty damn good for 2 mana. Equipment is definitely a theme in this set, and another equipment focused card we have is Thorin the Mountain King. In any red deck that's heavy on equipment, like a Voltron deck, this 4-drop Thorin can allow us to skip paying the equip costs when he enters and really stack up a dangerous creature. like a Voltron threat. When we do that, we also get to likely remove a creature because we get to deal a whole bunch of damage to it. Let's keep this Dwarf and equipment ball rolling with Diane's Company, a 2-mana Boros Dwarf. It has the ability that when it enters, you look at the top 4 cards of your library, and you may reveal a Dwarf or equipment card from among them and put it into your hand. Whilst this is obviously fantastic in a Dwarf deck, I also think it's decent in any Boros equipment list. Okay, let's take a break from equipment. If you're a Gandalf enjoyer, then Gandalf Goblin's Bane is going to be a really good addition to any Spellslinger decks, and especially those that are trying to burn out their opponents. He has a 2-mana adventure called Flameshape that exiles the top 2 cards of our library face down. We may play them as long as they remain there, as long as we control the wizard. Gandalf himself costs 3 mana and says that whenever we cast a non-creature spell, he gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn, and he deals 1 damage to each opponent. Gandalf is going to be right at home in any kind of deck that's abusing a card like Storm Kiln Artist, and if you have one of those decks, you already know. If you are instead a dragon enjoyer, then I think Smaug the Magnificent is a great fit for any red deck that's creating many treasures. By now I'm sure you've seen Smaug as he's the poster boy for the set. He's a pretty straightforward creature as a 4/3 flyer for 4 mana, and he has flying and haste. Whenever he attacks though, he deals damage equal to the number of treasures we control to any target. At the beginning of our upkeep, we create a treasure token. I think he's arguably more of a 60 card constructed card than a commander one, because I think that if we have enough treasures for his damage ability to be meaningful, then we should probably be winning the game anyway, but I still think in a treasure heavy deck, he probably has enough power to work well in commander. Now Smaug is represented a few times in this set, and Smaug Wicked Worm is a really strong 5-mana Rakdos dragon. His first ability is basically Dockside Extortionist because when he enters, we create X tap treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts your opponents control. But he also says that whenever you cast a spell, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, you draw a card and lose 1 life. This makes Smaug an incredible mana generation and card draw engine, but I think he works better in the 99 because as a commander, I think he just lacks a little bit of identity and it's just a bit generic. I do think he'd be a strong commander, just not particularly interesting. If you are an elf enjoyer, then Cantankerous Keepers has to be on your radar if it's not already. It's a 6-mana 4/3 with affinity for elves, so it's really going to cost more than its 1 green mana pip. When it enters, you mill 4 cards, and then you put all elf cards from among those into your hand. This thing is absolutely broken. I think the best way to showcase that is by showing you Wirewood Symbiote. It allows you to easily bounce the keepers to your hand over and over again and replay it, and the benefit for doing that is untapping something else like a Priest of Titania. It's a pretty amazing card draw engine. If Cantankerous Keepers is on your radar, you're probably also going to want to look at Elven Passage. It allows you to search up a basic land and put it into play untapped if you control or reveal an elf. Now if you end up building that bear deck, there is a card you may want to consider adding, and that's Dancing from Dark Till Dawn. It's a 5-mana green enchantment and it says whenever you cast the creature spell, put X 1/1 counters on target creature you control, where X was that spell's mana value. It also says that whenever a land you control enters, you create a 2/2 green bear creature token. Now I don't love cards that require you to play other things to get a payoff from a card, especially if the mana cost is quite high like it is here. But I think if you're running a lower power deck, the counter engine and creature engine could be well worth it if you get it going. From Dancing Bears to what I think is probably the strongest card in the set. The Queen of Dale is a 2-mana creature that says whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, we recruit, which again means that we draw and discard, and if we discarded a non-land card, we create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. This card is incredibly strong because it can get triggered many, and I mean many times per turn cycle. And the higher the power level that you're playing at, the bigger the threat this card becomes, because the higher power levels mean more spells cast per turn and more interaction battles. Regardless of the bracket you're playing in, across a turn cycle, one player might try and ram, another might play a card draw spell, and someone else might try and remove something or play a board wipe, and someone else may counter that spell. That would mean that you've drawn and discarded 4 times, and you've potentially made 4 1/1 human soldier tokens. That's broken in general, but if you build around it, filling your graveyard with stuff that you might want in there like a deep analysis, this is just absolutely nuts. While I think many have their eye on Gleaming Splendor as the chase staple of the set, I think the card to really watch out for is the Queen of Dale. I couldn't make this video and not talk about the Arkenstone. Now whilst I don't think the Arkenstone is going to be a particularly broken card, I do think it's generally quite good, and especially in lower power decks like Bracket 2, will be a great card in any white decks. The card has an adventure part of it, Seek the Heart, which is a white spell that allows us to pay 3 mana to search for a legendary creature card, revealing it and putting it into our hand. I think that is arguably the stronger part of the card, but if you choose to cast the Arkenstone for its full 5 colorless mana cost. It gives your creatures +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, you draw an extra card. Personally, I'd probably only play this in a highly thematic deck, or one where Seek the Heart makes a big difference in my deck as well, where I'm looking for specific legendary creatures. Now, whilst we're on artifacts, Glamdring Foehammer can be a very powerful equipment in a blue Spellslinger based deck. It's blue because of the 4 mana adventure part of it that says that we can mill 6 cards and then put an instant or sorcery card from among them into our hand. The equipment portion is a 2 mana artifact that says that instant and sorcery cards you cast cost X less to cast, where X is the equipped creature's power. And it has equip for 2 mana. This is going to work well in almost any blue deck that wants to sling spells, regardless of their mana values. We couldn't talk about Glamdring and not talk about Orcrist Goblin Cleaver. I think Orcrist is best suited to lower power decks unless one's managing to cheat in the equipment and the equip cost, because 6 mana across both of those is very expensive. That said, the equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has a trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we choose a creature type and we gain a treasure token for each creature we control of that type. In any deck that's making many small tokens of the same type of creature, like goblins or elves, this is going to go incredibly hard. Last but not least, we have another Thranduil, and while you can run this as a commander, and he will be great in that capacity, I think he's probably better in the 99 of another elf deck that includes blue and green, like Galadriel, Light of Valinor, which by the way has a beautiful reprint in the box toppers available with the Hobbit. Thranduil the Strategist is a 5 mana Simic elf. His first ability is that the other elves you control have tapped to add 1 green or blue mana, and whenever a land you control enters, you create a 1/1 green elf creature token. Now let's be real, it's not like an elf deck needed any more ramp power, but hey, we get that anyway. His landfall ability creates some nice synergies with cards like fetch lands, bounce lands, or something like Quirion Ranger that can bounce a land to our hand to untap a creature. Either as a commander or in the 99, Thranduil is a little bit pricey at 5 mana, but they'll provide an incredible ramp engine immediately that will see you playing for all manner of huge spells really easily, including something game-ending like a Craterhoof Behemoth. And those are the cards that I'm the most excited about from The Hobbit. I hope you found this useful and enjoyable, and I'd love to hear your takes on how you would use these cards in your own decks, and alternatively, if you think I've missed any, which ones and why. If you want to support what I do, smash up the like button or head over to my Patreon, and a big thank you to everyone that supports me over there, especially the Gigafrogers. And if you want some personal tailored help, I offer that over on Coffee, either through live deck building sessions or through full deck builds, all of which you can find the links to down below the like button. If you like this, go and check out one of these videos, and as always, thank you for being here.